Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening all over the world. I got an interesting video. This is going to be more of an inspirational video, but I want to talk or address the fact that I hear occasionally people saying that our generation had it so much easier in previous generations and it's just so hard now. I just want you to realize that it's not really the case. We all have struggled. I grew up in a military family, and it wasn't a bad thing. My dad was in the Navy. He wasn't a difficult person. He was very easy to get along, and he was career. He ended up going up from the enlisted ranks all the way through chief warrant officer and did very well for himself. But he was on carriers for 6, 9 months at a time for many years and during my formative years. And I went to 10 different schools out of my 12 years. We moved all the time. And I mean, it wasn't in the same city. We moved from, like, I was born in Texas, and then we moved to Jacksonville, and then we went to Norfolk, Virginia, and then down to Pensacola, and then Jacksonville, Pensacola, and we finally retired into Tampa Bay area. And I was about 17. Think about that. I didn't have any long-term friends because we were never in a place really much more than a year. So my kids grew up all the way from preschool through high school. They have friends for that long period of time. I never had that experience. My family didn't have any money to put me through college or anything. I would argue didn't even think that I was college material. A lot of my friends all went off to college because, again, they were very wealthy. I had a lot of friends, though, that took out a bunch of student loans even back at that time. We just were not a debt family. We never were. We didn't use credit cards. Of course, credit cards were relatively new at that time anyway. So I ended up going to technical school. When I graduated from high school, we had a very well-known state-run technical school. And so I went over there and took some tests, and they said, okay, because they had all the different things where you could build houses, you could do HVAC, plumbing, all this stuff. And they said, no, we're going to put you into multidisciplined, where it's electromechanical technology. I said, okay, what do I know? I don't know anything. So I learned about optics. We even, did holograms. I learned about statics and gear trains, and I learned about, built on my electronics. Even in high school, by the way, we had some electronics trade school training there as well. So it was quite interesting. All through the years growing up, we had, wood shop, metal shop, everything. I mean, I knew how to weld, I knew how to build, walls, tear them down, all this kind of stuff. We learned everything, all the power tools. Not like today. I don't think schools do any of this stuff anymore. During trade school, I would have to be to school at 7:30 in the morning. It was till 2 o'clock in the afternoon, or maybe 2:30, something like that. I'd take my car, go out into a field, and get in the back and take a nap because I had to be to work at 4:30. And then from like 4:30 to 12:30, midnight, and I'd get up and do it all over again. How the heck I did that on such short amount of sleep, I'll never know. The school then, as you got closer to finishing, they actually brought big companies in to interview. I was surprised. At that time, Michelin, would come in. We had Xerox, and they didn't want to have 4 people go out and work on a copying machine. They wanted a multidiscipline type person. So I never intended to go work on copying machines. That didn't sound that interesting to me. And I interviewed at several places locally, and they were below what I had in mind. And I was able to pick up a job in engineering at Texas Instruments, building integrated circuits at the wafer level. I moved around within those organizations, learned how to do the whole line, and I ended up, being a night supervisor. And then I said, well, okay, I've kind of learned that was my starter job. Now I want to, get something back in Florida. So I picked up a job with a defense contractor. And then I ended up working in that for like 35 years at the same company. Our company had been bought out, though, and it ended up changing names, but I never moved. We drove old cars. It was just what you did, and you learned how to fix things because it just was not affordable to go buy something new. I learned to save money. What happened later, though, I advanced very quickly at work. I wrote a lot of technical papers. I solved some major problems. They moved me up and up and up. And even though I was non-degreed, they made me an engineer and I advanced all the way up to senior principal engineering level. At that time, I was in my early 50s, and I said, I'm just going to accelerate getting out of here. And, I decided, I saw what was happening with real estate and everything else, and I knew it was an opportune time. We'd lived so frugally, we had saved a ton of money, and I had tons of vacation time. And I started buying properties 500 miles away from where we lived. I know that sounds insane, but I knew where I was going to retire, and so I started buying in that area. I was fixing these things up. I had to go develop my own staff, to be able to handle this stuff, but I would work during the day, and then I'd come home at night and do the planning for what materials, order it all online, have it delivered to the house where the people were working, and drive up there, like once a month, kind of see what's going on. But most of these homes, within 6 weeks, we had turned them around and had them rented. And then about 6 months later, I'd buy another one. We'd do it all over again. And, 1 year I did 3 of them in 1 year. Something unusual happened. I had planned on working 1 more year, but life throws you curveballs. All of a sudden, my dad had terminal cancer, and he was having a lot of troubles, and it was difficult for my elderly mom, and I had been watching over them for years. I ended up saying, well, let's go ahead, and I'll take off work. So I took some family leave to try to take care of them, and I realized, I needed to work on their house and do some things, and I ended up breaking my dang ankle. So now I ended up on medical/family leave, and I realized I need to just go ahead and retire. So I ended up putting in my paperwork, and they said, let's just wait till your 35th anniversary. So I ended up deciding that, okay, if the plans are we're going to go ahead and retire, let's go ahead and get our house in Georgia set up, and we got to fix these houses up, 2 houses that we had in Florida. And so within a 6-month period, while I got a broken leg, I think I had a broken leg for, while I was buying the house up in Georgia. I drove back and forth by myself with a broken right leg. Can you imagine that? I wasn't supposed to be flexing it, but I had to take it was one of the non-weight supporting bone, whatever it was in there. But the most painful thing I've ever done in my life. I ended up buying this house up in Georgia and basically put that on hold. After I bought it, I said, okay, we're just gonna, after I bought it, we moved a bunch of stuff up here and just parked it in the garages. Went back, worked on the houses in Florida. After we got a contract to my parents' house, we moved my mom in with us. My dad had to be put into a rehab because he had some serious operations, and they had to rehab him up. But so then that gave me time to finish my house in Florida and then come up here and start working on the walkout basement for my parents. So can you see the stupidity of what I did here? At first I had a traumatic, injury, and then I did a traumatic thing of just abruptly retiring before I needed to, taking care of a dying father, fixing up 2 homes, buying another home, and then fixing that home up, all within about a 6-month period. So, I bought the house in Georgia in February, and then we ended up moving everybody up to Georgia by June, and I picked my dad up by July 4th. And then he ended up passing away in December. I had original plans for retirement in my mind, and I'd been thinking about this for years, was I was not going to do anything for 6 months except for go fishing every day that I wanted to go fishing. That's what I had in mind for retirement. So guess what happened? None of it worked out the way I thought it was. And here we are 2 years later after I went through that whole trauma, and I'm just now told my wife, I feel like I'm retired because I bought a house that needed a lot of work too. Even after I fixed the basement, we had no driveway. I didn't have a shed out there. I had to build a shed. I had to clear a bunch of trees, had to put in a garden, get all my animals set up the way we wanted to. It has been an amazing amount of work. Even when I was working full time, we took care of the church. I was on church councils. We were Sunday school teachers, part of scouting. On and on and on. We have just always given back, and life is not always fair. I probably had a lot more advancement available to me at work, but it turned out that when all of a sudden you're starting getting significant income from other sources, call it mailbox money, and you have like a pension and other things, and you start realizing, hey, the numbers are where they are. Why do I need the aggravation when life gives you other aggravations anyways? So now I've been able to just focus on that. All right, so let's listen to what Jordan says.
It's not an accident that the axiomatic Western individual is someone who was unfairly nailed to a cross and tortured. It's like, yes, right, exactly. So what do you do about that? Well, I thought about that for a long time too. It's like, well, you don't get together the damn mob, because all that does is allow you to be as horrible as you could possibly imagine and suffer from none of the consequences. That's a bad idea. So how about we don't do that? Well, there's a deep idea in the West too. It's like, pick up your damn suffering and bear it. And try to be a good person so you don't make it worse. Well, that's the truth. You know, I read a lot about the terrible things that people have done to each other. You just can't even imagine it. It's so awful. So you don't want to be someone like that. You know, do you have a reason to be? Yes. You have lots of reasons to be. God, there's reasons to be resentful about your existence. Everyone you know is going to die. You know, you too. And there's going to be a fair bit of pain along the way, and lots of it's going to be unfair. It's like, yeah, no wonder you're resentful. It's like, act it out and see what happens. You make everything you're complaining about infinitely worse. There's this idea that hell is a bottomless pit, and that's because no matter how bad it is, some stupid son of a bitch like you could figure out a way to make it a lot worse. So you think, well, what do you do about that? Well, you accept it. That's what life is like. It's suffering. That's what the religious people have always said. Life is suffering. Yes. Well, who wants to admit that? Well, just think about it. Well, so what do you do in the face of that suffering? Try to reduce it. Start with yourself. What good are you? Get yourself together, for Christ's sake, so that when your father dies, you're not whining away in the corner and you can help plan the funeral. And you can stand up solidly so that people can rely on you. That's better. Don't be a damn victim. Of course you're a victim. Jesus. Obviously. Put yourself together. And then maybe if you put yourself together, you know how to do that. You know what's wrong with you, if you'll admit it. You know there's a few things you could, like, polish up a little bit, that you might even be able to manage in your insufficient present condition. And so you might shine yourself up a little bit, and then your eyes will be a little more open, and you can shine yourself up a little bit more, and then maybe you could bring your family together instead of having to be the hateful, spiteful, neurotic, infighting batch that you're, like, doomed to spend Christmas with. So then you fix yourself up a little bit, kind of humbly, because, you know, God, you're a fixer-upper if there ever was one. And then you got to figure out, well, can you figure out how to make peace with your idiot brother? And probably not, because he's just as dumb as you, so how the hell are you going to manage that? And so then maybe you get somewhere that way, your family's sort of functioning, and you find out, well, that kind of relieved a little bit of suffering, although it reduced the opportunities for spiteful revenge, and that's kind of a pain in the neck. And so then you get your family together a little bit, and you're a little clued in then, at least a bit, because you've done something difficult that's actually difficult. You're a little wiser, and so then maybe you can put a tentative finger out beyond the family and try to change some little thing without wrecking it. It's like, our society is complex, and we teach our students that they can just fix it. It's like, go fix a military helicopter and see how far you get with that. It's like, what are you going to do? You're like a chimp with a wrench. Whack! Oh, look, it's better. It's like, no, it's not better. Things are complicated, and to fix things is really hard. And you have to be like a golden tool to fix things, and you're not. So, and that's the other message of the West. It's like, how do you overcome the suffering of life? I'm not saying it's only the message of the West. How do you overcome the suffering of life? Is be a better person. That's how you do it. Well, that's hard. It takes responsibility. And I think, you know, you said to someone, you want to have a meaningful life? Everything you do matters. That's the definition of a meaningful life. But everything you do matters. You're going to have to carry that with you. Or do you want to just forget about the whole meaning thing, and then you don't have any responsibility because who the hell cares? And You can wander through life doing whatever you want, gratifying impulsive desires for how useful that's going to be. And you're stuck in meaninglessness, but you don't have any responsibility. Which one do you want? Well, ask yourself, which one are you pursuing? And you'll find very rapidly that it isn't the majority of your soul that's pursuing the whole meaning thing, because, well, look what you have to do that. You have to take on the fact that life is suffering. You have to put yourself together in the face of that. Well, that's hard. Christ, it's amazing people can even do it. I'm stunned every day when I go outside, and it isn't a riot with everything burning. Because really, God, you talk to people, it's like, I knew this guy, he'd been in a motorcycle accident, and it really ruined him. And he was like a linesman, working on the power, and he was working with someone who had Parkinson's disease, and they had complementary inadequacies. And so two of them could do the job of one person, and so they're out there fixing power lines in the freezing cold, despite the fact that one was 3/4 wrecked with a motorcycle accident, and the other one had Parkinson's. It's like, that's how our civilization works. It's like, there's all these rude people out there, they've got problems like you can't believe. Off they go to work and do things they don't even like, and look, the lights are on. My God, it's unbelievable. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. And we're so ungrateful. College students, the postmodern types, they're so ungrateful. They don't know that they're surrounded by just a bloody miracle. It's a miracle that all this stuff works. That all you crazy chimpanzees that don't know each other can sit in the same room for 2 hours sweltering away without tearing each other apart, because that's what chimps do. So, anyways, so what happened? Well, I made some videos, and I got to the bottom of some things, at least as far as I can tell, so I told you what the bottom is, and then I got this idea about what you might do about it, which isn't my idea. It's not my idea. It's an old idea. It's far older than Christianity. It's old. It's the oldest story of mankind. Get yourself together. Transcend your suffering. See if you can be some kind of hero. Make the suffering in the world less. Well, that's the way forward, as far as I can tell, if there is any way forward. That's what's under assault by the postmodernists. So look out, because they know exactly what they're doing, and they know exactly why they're doing it.
All right, sorry about the sound quality on the video. It always seems to do that, but I hope everybody's treating you well. I hope you're doing well. Do the best you can. God bless.